All right, let's get right into this because what's happening in France right now is some serious, high-stakes political drama, and it could have huge consequences. We're talking about a major showdown that really captures one of the biggest tensions of our time: national debt versus taxing the super, super wealthy.
And really, it all comes down to this one single question. I know, it sounds a little extreme, right? But as you're about to see, the answer could very well be yes. Seriously, the stability of one of Europe's most important countries is just hanging by a thread.
So, what's the immediate crisis? Well, literally as we speak, the French government, led by Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu, is trying to push through a really critical budget. It's an austerity budget, which means big spending cuts to get the national debt under control. The problem is, his government's very survival depends on this vote passing in a parliament that's just completely divided.
And look, this isn't happening in a vacuum. To really get the pressure Lecornu is under, you have to know he's the third prime minister in just over a year. Yeah, you heard that right. The two before him, they were both forced out over pretty much the same thing: these deeply unpopular cost-cutting plans. So this isn't just another political fight, it's a real pattern of instability.
So that brings us to the two main players in this whole standoff. On one side, you've got the government, absolutely desperate to pass its budget, and on the other, the center-left Socialist Party. And they're the ones who hold all the power to either make or break this government.
So here's the heart of the conflict. The Lecornu government needs to pass this spending bill to wrestle France's deficit and debt under control. But the socialists, who happen to hold the crucial swing vote, they have one demand, and it is non-negotiable. The budget has to include a brand new tax that targets the ultra-wealthy. No tax, no vote. Simple as that.
And let's be crystal clear about this. This is the ultimate political threat. The socialists have basically laid all their cards on the table. They are saying they're 100% prepared to trigger a vote that could bring down the entire government if they don't get what they want. It's an ultimatum, plain and simple.
So, of course, this begs the big question. What exactly is this tax that's causing all this chaos? Well, it's known as the Zucman Tax, and it's the absolute centerpiece of this whole entire fight.
It gets its name from a pretty famous French economist, Gabriel Zucman. And in the simplest terms, it's a levy, a tax, designed specifically to go after the immense fortunes held by just a tiny, tiny fraction of the French population.
So who would actually have to pay this? The threshold is, incredibly high. This tax would only kick in for households that have assets of at least 100 million euros. We are talking about the absolute tippy top of the wealth pyramid here.
And how targeted are we talking? Well, out of the entire population of France, it's estimated that only about 1,800 households would be affected. Think about that. It's a tiny number of people, but they hold a massive amount of wealth.
And the proposed rate itself is actually pretty straightforward. It's a minimum tax of 2% on that wealth. So, for every 100 million euros in assets you have, the tax would be at least 2 million euros a year.
And here it is. Here's the number that makes this whole thing so explosive. The estimated revenue from this one tax is a staggering 20 billion euros every single year. I mean, that's the kind of money that could totally change France's entire budget, which is exactly why the socialists are fighting tooth and nail for it.
But a standoff like this doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. To really understand why things are reaching a boiling point right now, we got to zoom out and look at the bigger picture and the incredible pressure the French government is under.
So the government is really getting squeezed from all sides here. First off, there's that hard deadline to pass the spending bill and get the deficit under control. Second, as we just saw, Lecornu's leadership is already on shaky ground after his two predecessors got the boot. And third, he already had to make a huge concession, suspending a really unpopular pension reform just to survive his last confidence vote. He's got almost no political wiggle room left. So, all of this, all the pressure, the threats, the negotiations, it all comes down to one critical moment: the vote. This is where it all becomes real and where the fate of the government is going to be decided.
And the timeline here is just unbelievably tight. According to reports, this whole thing could go down as soon as Monday. You can bet the entire French political world is just holding its breath, waiting to see if the government is going to cave or if it's going to risk getting toppled.
Which leaves us with this final, really central question. This is a classic battle, right? Fiscal discipline on one side, wealth redistribution on the other. But this is way more than just a French political drama. It's a snapshot of a debate that's happening all over the world. The outcome here in France could send ripples all across Europe and really influence how other countries deal with their own debt and inequality crises. So at the end of the day, in this battle between austerity and wealth, who's going to pay the price for France's stability? And what kind of signal is that going to send to the rest of the world?